should thank my good friend Arun for having put in my name to the organizers, because of whom I'm here along with Amish Patel. And I also thank all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my views on what is a really convoluted subject. The topic is really fantastic, but on first blush, when I read it, New Age Wars, square brackets, future of the world, role of professionals. I said, what is this combination of whiskey, lassi, and rasgulla? Once a war is declared, where is the question of future? And what is the future of the world which is indeterminate? Then you want to talk about the role of professionals. So I was skeptical, and I did tell the organizers, let me think about it and come back. And I slept over it, like what Viswanathan Anand was telling us right now. A good night's sleep gives you a better idea. And next morning I found that there was something far more meaning in this topic than what I initially gathered. I think I must congratulate the person or the group of persons who have stumbled upon this topic. My salutations to them. You don't have to feel so diffident. You can clap a bit loudly also. After all, I'm thanking the persons for doing this. There is an enormous civilizational connect to the topic. Sun Tzu, who is supposed to be a great Chinese philosopher who first thought about the philosophy of war, says war is for peace, and in peace prepare for war. It's a very beautiful statement. War is for peace, and in peace prepare for war. Why do you think about peace during war? Because war must lead to an order, to a new order that is sustainable. Otherwise, you will be like Putin. You go and enter Ukraine, you do not know when to end. You are praying for somebody to come in and end the war. You should know when to end the war, and when you end the war, you must create a new order. And I find resonance in two shlokas of Gita. Viswanathan Anand was going on telling that in his formative days, he was drawn to chess. I was drawn to war. I love wars, studying wars, understanding wars. And the two shlokas are that Arjuna says, Krishna tells to Arjuna that karmanya vadikarasya. In peace, prepare for war. That is your karma. And war is for peace. And whatever dharma you will uphold or create, it will have the propensity to spiral downwards and hit the nadir. And once it hits the nadir, it is yada yada hi adharmasya. God will have to come and recreate the order. This cycle has been repeated by the Chinese in a different language, in a different expression. So we always have an end game in war. It is not vini, vidi, visi of the Westerners. I came, I saw, I conquered. What did you do after that? I don't know. But two of our great heroes in our history had some phenomenal understanding of war. Vini, vidi, visi, and then contemplation. Ashoka. After the war, he thinks what he should do, what he shouldn't do. Vini, vidi, contemplation, visi. Arjuna. I came, I saw, I contemplated, then I conquered. But contemplation is a constant in our heroes. It is those of you who are students of mathematics who will have done integral mathematics will know that there is always a constant plus C in when you do your integral mathematics. A great hero always contemplates and invariably brings in a new order. And that contemplation is something that is germane to our part of the world. We always think, after probably at the age of 70, somebody will be thinking, should I have taken commerce? Should I have done CA? Should I have taken to practice? You know, this type of thoughts goes on coming to the eastern side of the world, the orient side of the world. That is why the biggest war that we always have is our own self. Jaya. That is why they say it is Jaya. Jaya, Vijaya, Sanjay. 3 names. Jaya is a war with yourself. Vijaya is a war with others. Sanjaya is somebody who is maintaining equanimity during war. He is a commentator. He doesn't shout like our commentators shout when you hit for a 6 or somebody gets a wicket. That is why Sanjaya was chosen as a commentator during war. The entire Bhagavad Gita, second shloka starts with Sanjaya Uvacha. So, Jaya is a war that you have with yourself, and the original name of Mahabharata is called Jaya. Jaya becomes Bharata, becomes Mahabharata. Why I am giving this philosophical background to war is I have to come to the new age war, but with the old civilizational bearings. The end of war, as I said, must be determined by you. There is no other way. You have to, if there is a war, you have to determine the end of the war. Just 50 years back, 1971, we won the war and we handed over 93,000 prisoners of war to our neighbor. No other country has ever done this. We should have sent 93,000 coffins. This is what Chanakya says. But we sent 93,000 prisoners of war, gave them biryani and did Kerala massage to them and sent them back. No other country can, because we don't have a concept of war. Our wars are basically wars with our spouse or wife, usually with our wife, and we are so happy to come second best. And we think we have achieved a great thing. Wars are something far more serious. And the Western idea of war is contradistinct from your idea of war. Your idea of war is with yourself. The Western idea of war is based on a supremacist theory that I am superior, my religion is superior, my genes is superior, my race is superior, my language is superior, my ideology is superior, and you are inferior. And you are my burden. You are the white man's burden that I am taking on in my civilization. It is my duty to do something to you, so you are secondary to me. This is the idea of war. And so much so that all wars were thought to have come to an end by 1990s. When Russia broke up, the last war was said to be over. People said this is the end of history. Francis Fukuyama wrote a book titled End of History and the Last Man. And he says this is the end of history, and based on his book, history departments were closed in several universities. And then we had the Gulf War, then Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait. Then he revised his opinion. And in between, Samuel Huntington wrote a book, Clash of Civilization. He said, world has more or less followed the Western-centric model. There is no problem for the rest of the world, excepting China, which will think about its own standards and its own ideas of the world. The Middle East, which will have its own ideas of the world. And America, which will be intransigent towards everything. It will say that I am the world. So the three important issues that Samuel Huntington highlighted about war was basically civilizational. So this new age war that we are talking about, the cyber war, the economic war, the tax war, the psycho war, the currency war, the germ war, water war, space war, regulatory wars are all manifestation of this supremacist theory. If we understand this, we understand all these wars are subset of a larger war, and these are all yuktis. These are all merely instrumentalities of war. The real war is something else. And the real war is to be fought. Let me tell you, not by assuming that you are superior or inferior. The war is to be won by saying that we will establish a global order. If you don't establish a global order, you are only going to follow the other person, and that person will go on dominating you. If you don't establish standards, whether it is accounting, engineering, medical, whatever, you are only going to be a photocopy of the West. And let me tell a simple example. My grandfather's time, the normal BP would be 140 by 100. Then it came to 120 by 100 or 90 by my father's time. Today they say 110 by 70. Unless you give me some comatose medicine, you will never get 110 by 70. In a normal person, it is impossible. In Indian diet, in Indian way of living, it is impossible to have 110 by 70. If 110 by 70 is the yardstick, 80% of us are suffering from BP in this hall. Likewise, fasting sugar. 120 say 110, 110 say 100, I mean 90. The type of food habits that we have, normally the Western standards cannot be imposed on us. And we have willingly imposed the Western standards and say we are 80% diabetic capital. Then they say Chennai is the diabetic capital of the world. Bangalore says, no, we are, sir. So happy. And if you have 120 as the fasting, or 110, which is what it was for thousands of years, 99% of Bangalore, 99% of Chennai will not have diabetes. And you have created an industry out of it by just changing the standards. And in this, the main idea of war must have an end game, war must have an idea. For the first 1,000 years post-Christ, it was predominantly religion-driven, with commerce and army playing a secondary role. The next 1,000 years, it was army, commerce, and religion. And now it is commerce-driven war. It is absolutely commerce-driven. So you have to understand the grammar of war has changed. The objective of war has not changed. And once it has come to the commerce, we, not the man in the border, the captains and the colonels are not the army men who will fight the war. It is the chartered accountants, the MBAs, the lawyers who will be fighting this war. So you are no longer professional chartered accountants. If I say very colorfully, you are all men without fatigues. You are all army men without fatigues. You have let us not be having any confusion about it. And this, let me give you a small example. And Mr. Ritwik Sangvi's paper for the souvenir has been brilliant. I think and urge all of you to read it, because he has brought out one of the most important. I thought out of so many wars, let me take currency war because of paucity of time and deal with this. Just the currency war. And in this, I will urge all of you to read one more book by James Rickards. The title of the book is Currency Wars. And what does he say? The Applied Physics Laboratory, which is located between Baltimore and Washington, D.C., has cutting-edge technologies of space and armaments. And they say that every place that they conduct a lot of experiments, and he says, the author says, my association with the lab started in 2006 in Omaha, Nebraska, when I was attending a strategy forum hosted by the US Strategic Command, or STATCOM. I presented a paper on the new science of market intelligence, of what intelligence experts call market. And then he says, Chris Ray, a seasoned options trader and risk manager, and Randy Toss, recently retired after 35 years with CIA, had developed new ways to use these techniques in national security. Now, the Applied Physics Laboratory does not do any experimentation on physics. It does experiment on currency, on market. Think of RBI calling one army colonel, one chartered accountant, one IB man, and sit and discuss what is the market int. What would happen if a rupee comes under threat? What happens if a particular stock is hammered? This is what happened till Supreme Court came with a judgment day before yesterday, right under our nose. This is what we are lacking. We think war will be fought at Kargil at 25,000 feet, and there will be some army men to do it. It happened at Dalal Street. It will happen at Mint Street. It will happen here. Not physically, it will be used in variety of ways that we will be impossible to even conjure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you will not even know the enemy who is doing this. Now, all of you have heard that the counterpart for Reserve Bank of India is US Federal Reserve, right? Who owns the US Federal Reserve? Mysore Bonda mein Mysore nahi. Federal Reserve mein Federal nahi. US Federal Reserve System is owned by 12 banks. US, New York, Federal Reserve, Chicago, so on and so forth. And who owns these 12? Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Chase, goes on. And these guys come and tell, absolute transparency is required in the financial markets. But we don't ask. Sir, please also tell us who owns Federal Reserve in the interest of transparency. Now let me come to the core of my presentation, currency wars, which is what I am talking about. So you do not know the enemy. You do not know what is his yukti. You do not know when he will strike and how he will strike. To understand this, I intend to give a presentation on what I call as the financial apocalypse, which will be the dollar collapse. The collapse of the dollar is impending. It is waiting to happen. But don't ask me whether it will happen during Rahu in the 5th house or Ketu in the 11th house. I don't have that timing. But please be prepared for the collapse of the dollar, because dollar is becoming unsustainable by the day. To understand why I say this, you all must go back to the Bretton Woods of 1945. When the World War happened, everybody had exported gold to US so that US could give them steel to make guns and tanks and whatnot, because US was in splendid isolation, it was never at war. till 1945. So US had accumulated so much of gold, only its currency could be backed by gold. And Lord John Maynard Keynes said $35 per troy ounce will be the basis on which US will issue dollar. And based on the currency value each country wants to fix to the dollar, they can issue their currency. I think ours was 1 rupee originally, then devalued. Today it is 83. But that's not the story. When US started giving dollars, it had to ensure for every dollar issued, it had that much amount of gold. Then like a typical dudwala, who first gives you 100,000 ml of gold, milk per liter of milk, then next month 30 ml, then 50 ml, then finally there is 50 ml of milk and 950 ml of water. US started printing more dollar than they had the gold. They had to finance the Korean War, the Vietnam War. They had so much of problems. The French were the first fellows to understand this. So they started giving their dollar and saying, give us $35 worth of gold. Every $35, give me 1 troy ounce. 15th August 1971, it is very important date. 15th August, we only did not get independence. Gold got independence from dollar. It's a remarkable coincidence. President Nixon said, I will break the gold standard and I will not give gold. America reneged on its guarantee. Then what happened? But you had so much dollar circulating in the world. How do we bring it under our control? OPEC was formed. Oil producing, exporting countries were asked to jack up their oil prices. Around 200 countries had excess dollar. It came into the hands of 10 countries, mostly Arab countries. And America played geopolitics to control them, and that is reserved for another part of the day. And made them invest in dollars. That also went on for some time. Then WTO came. Then they said, you back the dollar international trade only through dollar. So if I have to buy potato from Sudan, I can't pay in rupee, I cannot get or pay in Sudanese currency. I have to pay only in dollar. That meant the demand for dollar went up. In 1972, an US Treasury Secretary said, dollar is our currency, your responsibility. Better be careful. If dollar falls, husha, busha, all fall down. So, today we will have to preserve the dollar. If dollar falls, we also fall. Then came this issue of globalization. Everybody started exporting. America started consuming. Very happy. All you have to do is to print dollar and give to people. People are giving you my computer, laptop, anything. And China fell into this trap. China went on giving goods. America gave them dollar. China did not know what to do with the dollar. It gave it back to America. America gave it a pro note. Understand this. Globalization reduced to a simple currency war is this. I got laptop from China. I gave them dollar. China did not know what to do with the dollar. It gave back the dollar to me. I gave it a simple IOU. Chinese currency reserve went 3 times, 4 times, 2.5 trillion, 3 trillion. But what could they do? All the money was with America. So Chinese did not believe in God, but they secretly went to God and said, America theek rehna chahiye baba. Because if America falls, $3 trillion gayo. It is like a branch manager who has given 5 crore rupee of loan to you for buying a flat. He will tell you, sir, today is first, sir, EMI, sir, please, sir, please be careful. But if he has given 50,000 crores to somebody, he will say, sir, I went to Tirupati, sir. I have got laddu, sir. I am sending my CGM to your house, sir. He will give you, CGM's job is to give Tirupati laddu to this fellow because he has taken 50,000 crore rupee loan. No NPA, nothing. They will rewrite something. Sir, we will give you green, evergreen. We have consulted our auditors also, sir. They are okay with this. They will rope you guys also. This was known to Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein understood that I have oil, Iran has oil, Iraq has oil, Kuwait has oil, Venezuela has oil, but you can sell oil and purchase oil only in London and in New York commodity exchange. You have to necessarily pay dollar. If you buy potato from, say, Japan, will you pay dollar? Why should you pay dollar? And why should it be traded in, say, Singapore? He said, no. I will create a commodity exchange in one island, if I remember right, it is Kukos. And he said, I will give you oil in whichever currency you want. You want to give me in Pakistani rupee? Give me. You want to give me in Indian rupee? Give me. Weapons of mass destruction. Andar gaya, they killed him. And on Vaikunta Ekadashi day, a Christian country hanged a Muslim leader and he went to heaven at 4 a.m. And look at the irony. He was hanged on a Vaikunta Ekadashi day. And this is what is the most terrible thing that has happened. That they have gone to any extent to protect their currency. So what is happening in the world? Why is it that these discussions don't happen? There is an enormous amount of regulatory capture. And this is what worries me. I'm quoting from one of my books, and I'm quoting from here, there. The challenge arising out of revolving doors. The revolving door is the shift in roles of a person back and forth as a legislator and regulator to the industries affected by such regulation and legislation. For instance, Duhamel points out that Robert Rubin served as Treasury Secretary during Clinton administration. And before that, he was in Goldman Sachs for 26 years. Henry Paulson served as a secretary during George W. Bush administration. Before that, he was 32 years in Goldman Sachs. Stephen Mnuchin has been Treasury Secretary since 2017 in Trump administration. Before his service, 17 years in Goldman Sachs. Democratic aaye, Republic aaye, Clinton aaye, Trump aaye, Goldman Sachs is their Treasury Secretary. One thing constant. We think change in regime is happening in US administration. Democrats, how will the markets react? Potato. Market is Goldman Sachs is market. We don't even realize we are at war. That is the worst part. Then I will have to say this. The 2008 crisis happened, economic crisis. The Queen went to the London School of Economics. That's the alma mater of all economics. There were 4 Nobel Prize winners in economics. Joseph Stiglitz, this. She asked the question, why did this crisis happen? Tell us. One fellow looked at the other fellow looked at the other fellow, and said, we will come back, madam. Nice question, very good question. And what did they say? Look at what Economist says. The Economist in 2009, July says, Robert Lucas, hailed as one of the greatest macroeconomists of his generation, and his followers are making ancient and basic analytical errors all over the place. It further commented that Harvard's Robert Barrow, another towering figure in the discipline, is making truly boneheaded arguments. They are not from Bombay University or Madras University. They are all Harvard or Chicago or Nobel Prize winners. One fellow is saying boneheaded. Other fellow is saying that this fellow is an absolute idiot. Speaking at the conference, the London School of Economics, Paul Krugman and William Buiter of London School of Economics respectively indicated that the world economic crisis is a crisis of economics too. In the last of his Lionel Robbins lectures at the LSE, Krugman caustically observed that the most macroeconomics of the past 30 years was spectacularly useless at best harmful at worst. And this is the Bible, Quran, Veda that we read and teach our children. That this is macroeconomics, this is what you should read, you should understand. This is what it is, it's so brilliant. And who is telling this? One set of economists to another set of economists. We don't know who is right. And this is the toxic derivatives imbroglio that happened in 2008, the aftermath of it. These old-timers can answer this. 1990, I'm talking about the year very carefully, 1990, there's a quiz. There was a South Commission. I do not know how many of you remember, younger generation may not even know about it. This was a think tank at that time, the non-aligned movement had collapsed, the leftist movement has collapsed, USSR has collapsed, so all these third world countries came together as a South, and they brought in a South Commission. And one of the report in 1990 says, 1990, note this, a prominent feature of the last 2 decades has been the increasing globalization of the world economy, particularly of production and finance. The role of transnational companies has grown. Takeover and mergers of companies across national boundaries have multiplied, helped by the explosive growth of international private financial flow. Do you know who is the author of this report? Who says financial deregulation is dangerous for third world countries? Who says we must exercise caution? Do you know who says capital account convertibility is dangerous? Who is the author of this report? Dr. Manmohan Singh, who becomes the finance minister of this country in 1991 and does precisely all these things, and we applaud him for being a genius. I am not saying he didn't do the right thing. I am questioning which Manmohan Singh is the correct Manmohan Singh. Is it the 1990 version or 1991 version? Like tally, every year there is one version. After IMF, in IMF there is a review committee which is called the Independent Evaluation Office. In 2001 report, the IEO explains why IMF failed to give clear warning in the 2000s about the financial crisis. The IEO underlines that during the period 2004 to 2007, the main message of the IMF was characterized by great confidence in the soundness of large financial institutions and endorsement of financial practices. Crucially, IEO report finds that IMF's ability to identify the risk was mainly hindered by a culture of groupthink. And this is manipulated through the media. Ladies and gentlemen, we are chartered accountants, we are professionals. We cannot be cheerleaders. Every policy of the government has to pass our professional understanding. We may be wrong in our professional assessment, but since it comes from this party or that party, we should not let go a policy being critically analyzed. I am sorry to say this, that we as professionals are failing this country in this duty. You need not be muted, you can also be loud now. Because the fact is, the title given to me is Role of Professionals, the third limb of the presentation. We have to be honest to the nation. We are the army men without fatigues. And I am saying this repeatedly. I'll give you one such example. There is a book titled Treasure Islands. I went to meet this gentleman. He would not give me time. I chased him up to Zurich and I found him and I had a 1-hour meeting with him in Zurich. And why do I say this? Because he has written this book. I was stunned. How many of you have heard of London City? Obviously, most of you or all of you. How many of you heard of the Lord Mayor of the City of London, which is the mayor of the city, which is called the city? What is this, the city? It is the London's offshore armory, is a strange one. It concerns an organization called the City of London Corporation. On the face of it, Corporation of London, as it's sometimes known, is merely the municipal authority for London, the City of London, a 1.22 square mile of prime financial real estate located at the geographical center of the physical sprawling metropolises of Greater London, which is next to the Thames. But the Corporation of London is far more than a municipal authority. It is a lobbying organization for the financial sector that is so deeply embedded in the fabric of British nation state that it has become impossible in Britain, even after the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression, to confront or even seriously check the power of finance. Without understanding the Corporation of London, one cannot properly understand how Wall Street has become so powerful in the US. And who is there? Who is in the City of London? International Accounting Standard Board, which is a private limited company incorporated in Delaware. What have been we marketed with? That IFRS is the highest level of transparency you will get. Haven't we marketed it, sir? Am I wrong by saying this? So a phantom came whose father and mother are unknown and told us, you have IFRS, you do this, you will do this, you do this, enormous money will come in. We did not even have the gumption to look at what is this IASB. ये भूत है कि नाथ है या भूतनाथ है. Amazing. And this has happened to the best of minds. The 4 lakh chartered accountants must be the best minds in this country. And we let go of this opportunity to ask the world, who have you sent? And why are you marketing this? And I will tell you, it took an enormous effort by me single-handedly to bring it to the attention of the government of India. It was your MP from Bombay, Mr. Devra, who is no more. He understood it in no time. It took 5 minutes for me to convince him. And it didn't take any time for that great gentleman to understand that this was a bogus one. Now let me come to one more thing which I will... Do I have 10 minutes? Excuse me, organizers. How much time do you have? Oh, 6. Oh, you have put it there. Sorry. Okay, I think I'm well in time. The year before last, 22 June, we had a huge crisis in Sri Lanka. So I prepared a 70-page paper and sent to the powers that be. So leave that. But I suggested 3-4 things, which is what is required of the new age wars. Sri Lanka is something more closer to Tamil Nadu than, say, Bombay is, geographically. If we run fast from Rameshwaram and we trip over a stone, we may end up in Sri Lanka. It is that close. It had huge problems, so I suggested that Sri Lankan debt is $50 billion. In 21-22, our revenue excess over above the budgeted figures was 5 lakh crores, which is around $50 billion. Our revenue excess above the budget is equivalent to Sri Lanka's foreign exchange debt. So we should think about it as a small chiller. And I said, India must guarantee $50 billion of debt. It should not pay. It should give a sovereign guarantee to everybody. Provided Sri Lanka says, I will peg the Sri Lankan rupee to Indian rupee at 4 rupees. Hand over the entire imports and exports to from Sri Lankan authorities to MMTC and STC to canalize it. We take over the defense, we take over the foreign affairs. And there must be a very clear understanding that Sri Lanka will vote with us in every international meeting. In short, we extend Article 370 of the Constitution to Sri Lanka. Kashmir se mat hatao, Sri Lanka pe jatao. If you are going to talk about Akhanda Bharat without preparation, one day Akhanda Bharat will happen, but we will be not prepared. And I said in that paper, I had been to Hambantota, not once, not twice, 3 times I had been to Hambantota. And I suggested Hambantota is one port where you have a landing facility of A380. Colombo airport doesn't have it. The Hambantota port cannot use more than 2 or, if you export everything out of Hambantota port, only 2 or 3 of the entire berths can be used in Hambantota. So I suggested we must take over Hambantota. We met Ranatunga. Arjuna Ranatunga was the shipping minister then. And he said, we are ready to convert Hambantota into a free trade zone. This all has to be worked out. And this can be worked out. Do you think RBI or SEBI people can work it out? No. It is only people with passion can work it out. Only people like us can work it out. And I said, 36 Rafales must be purchased and you should have a squadron in Hambantota. From Madagascar to Indonesia, and it has to be seamlessly done. War is too serious a business to be left to generals and GMs and AGMs. We have to take it up. And we are eminently capable of taking it up. There are 2 ways of taking it up. One way is to become the carbon copy of the West and take on, which we have done till date, because we are in what is called as a rehabilitation stabilization mode. But to go on from here, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has to write accounting standards sui generis. Absolutely new, absolutely diverse from what it has written. The engineering standards have to come differently. The medical association has to come with different standards. This is not to say we should not borrow from the others. Please understand. I am not advocating for a North Korean model, but I am advocating for a genuine Indian model. And I am talking it from absolute experience. That you can do it. And my paper on Sri Lanka is still debated in the highest echelons of the government. Because not that it brought something wonderfully new or something that they did not know. How did a chartered accountant lawyer think about it, and he is giving this? What has he got to do with war? So, Aurobindo said, India will rise, and India is rising. And we are on the cusp of regaining our greatness. But the question is, are we going to be Anglicized Orientals, as the word Aurobindo says? Or Annie Besant says, is India going to be itself or another? The choice is before us. In this war, the West has succeeded in making Indians another. It is time that India become Indians. And if India becomes Indians, we will have to have a responsibility of taking forward and establishing a new global order. It is no longer saying we are part of an emerging global order. That means you are a clerk. If you determine and say that we are part of an emerging global order, you are a clerk. Instead, you should say we are bringing a new global order. And that is the role of professionals. Thank you very much.